the my name is Ray Collins. I chair the South Manchac Neighborhood Plan contact team. I'm calling this meeting of the contact team to order at 6:02 p.m. And we're going to start with some introductions. And let's start with David. You want to start? You're the vice chair.
Yes, David Foster, Vice Chair, Southwood resident since 1993, and can pass the baton to Anna, I guess.
And then Susan, you want to go next?
I can go after Anna.
Hi, I'm Anna Pittala. I'm the president of the Southwood Neighborhood Association. Susan?
Okay.
And I'm Susan Shorn. Everybody calls me George. It's a long story. My pronouns are she and her, and I am the secretary of the South Manchaca contact team.
Okay. And then we have another neighborhood association officer. James, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, Jimmy Soma. I'm the treasurer of the Southwood Neighborhood Association.
All righty. And Andrew Gonzalez, our District 6 trustee. You want to introduce yourself, Andrew?
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm sorry I'm a few minutes late. My name is Andrew Gonzalez. I represent District 6 on the ISD Board of Trustees, which is South Central Austin, and it includes 15 different campuses, the vertical teams for Crockett, Aikens, as well as part of the Travis vertical team. So thank y'all for having me here.
Yeah, thanks for coming. And I see Council Member Velasquez has joined us. So if you would introduce yourself, Council Member.
Hey, y'all, I am Councilmember Jose Velasquez representing District 3. Big chunk of East Austin and a big chunk of South Austin. I'm pleased to be here with y'all today. Thank y'all for having me.
Thank you. And let's see. There's Ryan. Ryan Alter, please introduce yourself.
Yes, hello everybody. I am Councilmember Ryan Alter, representing kind of Central South, good portion of Southwood neighborhood here. So glad to be on and hear what's going on.
Okay, and Ben is his chief of staff. You want to introduce yourself, Ben?
Yeah, hey, good evening, everybody. Apologies for being off camera. I'm kind of running around after my son, but I think I joined y'all back a couple months ago, and happy to be on tonight. It's good to see y'all, and looking forward to the discussion.
All righty, and then my former vice chair from a previous term has joined us. So Peggy, you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, sorry, I just unmuted myself. I'm Peggy Dunn. Nice to see everybody.
And let's see, I'm just going back up now. Marion, you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Marion Martin. I live in the Southwood neighborhood.
Yeah. And Michael, you want to say hello?
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Michael Whellan. I work at Armbrust & Brown, and I represent St. David's Healthcare. Okay. And I've got two colleagues with me. Should I just introduce them? Or April and Michael can introduce themselves. They're with me.
All righty. April, I guess you're listed on here under the Armbrust & Brown logo, right?
Yeah, hi, that's me, April Brown with Armbrust & Brown. I apologize. I don't quite know how to rename myself from my phone, but I will figure it out in a moment. I've been to the Southwood contact team meetings and neighborhood meetings a few times. We've done a few different projects together, and it's nice to be back with you all.
And then we have Michael Galdini, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Hey, y'all. I'm Michael Gazzini. I work with Whellan and April, and I'm glad to be with y'all tonight.
Okay, and then we have, going back up, Wade, I don't recognize you. Would you give us your full name and introduce yourself?
Yes. Hey, name's Wade Ferguson. I'm with Healthcare Facilities Development. And yeah, glad to be on the call pertaining to a project that we're looking to do in the neighborhood.
Oh, okay. And Mr. Sutt, you're the owner of the 4405 Merle, if you would introduce yourself. I mean, not the owner, but the person that's pursuing the zoning change.
Yes, this is Jason Selpt. I'm representing my mother's interest on that property.
Yeah. And let's see, who is up next? Oh, Rika, I skipped you. Your client, would you introduce yourself? This is the lady who is, Mr. Sutt is hired to represent himself.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Ray. My name is Rika Keepers. I own Keepers Land Planning, and I am working with Jason to request the rezone for 4405 Merle.
Okay. All righty. So I think that's everybody then. So let's just get right into the presentation by Rika, I suppose. Or do you have a slideshow or
I
a PowerPoint?
I do. I will share with you guys right now.
Okay.
Can everybody see this? Oh, sorry.
Yes, I can see it.
Perfect. Okay. Well, let me get started. If I am okay, can everybody can see the screen, correct?
I can see the screen. I can't see the slides.
You can't see the slides now. Okay. Let me redo this. I'm not sure what happened. Strange. Pull it back up. Okay, there we go. Technology is not my strong suit. Apologies. Okay. Okay, can everybody see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so let me just, I would like to also just say thank you so much. I'm really glad Ryan and Ben is on. I've spoken to Ben about this project, just to kind of give him a heads up this was coming in their direction in their district. So we are asking for rezoning of 4405. And the owner, they've owned the property for quite some time, and they're really looking to use this property to improve the neighborhood, get rid of the existing building, and improve it by building a small little store that would sell to-go drinks and food. And I'm going to move on to the map here. You see that it's so close to 290, so you know traffic won't be an issue. I'm just pretty much going over some of the concerns that we normally see from neighborhood and contact teams and things like that. And but I want to give a lot of time for questions at the end, so I will be keeping this brief. So as you can see right now, it is zoned LO. We are asking for GR so that we are able to do the small restaurant, but basically all to go stuff, all to go food and drinks. Since this is along 290, you've got a lot of those commercial properties, and it's right next to that GR zone as well. Zooming in a little bit closer, you can see better. It is right next door to all of this GR, VNP, GR vertical mixed use, and LO is what it stands for right now as far as what it has. You guys are probably pretty familiar with this, but just to let you know, GR is community commercial. That's what we're asking for. It gives him the building coverage of 75% and impervious cover of 90%. He's not really looking to maximize this property. It's really more to revitalize it and use it properly. And it would give him that the restaurant space that he's looking for in order to do to go. drinks and whatnot. And I have the map up if anyone has questions about this particular property or the surrounding areas. But that is what we're asking for today. Is we're asking for to rezone this, just for approval to rezone this and support to GRNP from LONP.
I do have a
Okay.
question. What's right in front of it along 290?
Oh, let's take a look. I looked at this, but I want to double check it.
I envision exactly where the property is now.
It used to be a taco place. It's closed right now. It's boarded up.
It was a Mexican restaurant. Previously, it was also a chicken and waffle temporarily.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to first comment on the fact that one of the things that hasn't happened that the contact team wants to see, they want to see a demolition permit in the permitting database, because that abandoned house is causing us a great deal of trouble. And Mr. Sutt, if you want a relationship to sell stuff to the people that live here in the neighborhood, I can tell you they are very upset about the abandoned house and the fact that it hasn't been demolished. And yet here you are asking for a zoning change. And we've got a problem property here that is abandoned. And so what will eventually happen is that the contact team will make a recommendation when you get ready to present to the planning commission and then to the city council. However, I can tell you that in part, that recommendation is going to be related to the fact of whether that house is demolished or not. And they'll of course, at that point in time, we'll make a recommendation about whether we approve the zoning or not. And then, having said that, I want to open it up for questions, and also if you want to say anything, Mrs. Keepers or Mr. Sutt.
I'm happy to speak directly to that. So the main holdup on a demo permit and progress over there actually has to do more with the insurance company and insurance claim. As you can imagine, insurance companies are a big bureaucracy. I have made some progress with the insurance company, but unfortunately, I can't move forward with a demo permit until the insurance claim is finalized. So I do ask for some understanding in regards to dealing with a big insurance company, and insurance companies are not always that apt to just write large checks, because this is a fire. There's been already several investigations. Whenever there's a fire associated, the threshold for the payment, this is all, I'm only speaking now to what I've experienced, and this is the first time I've ever experienced this. The level of investigation was pretty significant. I guess that they're worried about things like arson. So that has had everything to do with the delays. I think we're getting closer to having that resolved. They're asking me to get a couple of more bids to come up with a full valuation on the claim. But as I've talked to them about it, I've expressed to them the concerns about the neighborhood, about demoing it. I was given very clear instruction with them not to tamper with the site, and all the way to the point where they stated that I could become a suspect in the investigation if I did not follow their timelines. So I apologize that it's still there. I apologize that it's an eyesore. I am at the mercy of the institutions I'm dealing with on resolving.
Well, actually, I do understand that from a friend of mine's experience, where there was a fire in his restaurant and he was automatically the first suspect. Which is exactly what you're talking about. And he didn't have anything to do with it, of course, but so I consider that a quite viable explanation. Thank you. I guess I'll call it viable. Do you have any idea though about when you might have about what the insurance company might come through with, or when they might come through?
It looks promising that within the next 3 or 4 months that this would be wrapped up. Based on the amount of time that's been spent, where I perceive the timeline, again, I'm never done this before, so this is my best interpretation of where we're at. We are down to, they're asking me for a few bids, but every time anything happens, I send it into the bureaucracy and I wait 2 to 3 weeks for some kind of response from them. And I've actually started to look into some other security measures for the property in the meantime, to include possibly renting some fencing. It's a difficult situation. I think that the proximity of both a large population of homeless, a large, I'm aware of at least one and possibly a second group that kind of in a way promotes homeless activity in that area through food and different kind of donations. I'm trying to do the best I can and be an understanding of what the neighborhood needs, but I kind of also ask the neighborhood to consider that both the neighborhood and myself and a lot of the security circumstances are exacerbated by the goodwill of certain elements in the area, and then institutional challenges with addressing the homeless issue. I'm doing the best I can. There's nothing that's a plus for me in this. I know the math numbers. In my best case scenario on the insurance claim, it's still a loss, and that doesn't even count all the time that's been put in dealing with the insurance companies. It's not a pleasantry. There's no upside. I'm doing the best I can. I do know that with the zoning change, it'll allow for the application to really start to utilize the property. I know that if there's an open business there, I've run businesses. I'm actually former military myself. My dad's a World War II veteran. I understand the need for security. I understand how to implement that. I understand how to train employees, the importance of making sure that the patrons feel safe, that the neighborhood feels safe. I think that a zoning change is just going to expedite my ability to improve that area, to improve that street, and make it a safer, more enjoyable street for everybody in Austin, the people that live there and the people that come there. And I think what Rika talked about, I think it does make a big deal, is the fact that it's right on the feeder road. The impact from anybody, most of the patronage I see as being internal. I think it's going to have minor impact from external. And I think by having a new business there, I know I look forward to trying to help make that a more secure environment. I'm born and raised Austin, and they've owned that property for already 45 years. It would really be an honor to go and make that something that's a benefit to the community. I need the zoning change to do that. The light office zoning just leaves very little that can be done with that property.
Okay, and I'm gonna open. Anybody else want to put in a question at this point? Go ahead, David.
Thank you. So, I concur with everything Ray said at the outset, by the way. So when you say that this is a pickup business, does that mean it's a drive-through?
It's not going to qualify for drive-through. I don't believe, Rika. I wouldn't think that, given the way that it's laid out, that it would be like drive-through where you have, and I don't see the volumes of business associated with a drive-through. It's more like, I would look at more like a mild sundry store kind of.
So there wouldn't be in dining on site inside
at this time. No.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm asking is because it seems that all of those properties along the Ben White frontage road have an enormous potential to be redeveloped in a way that moves us forward in creating a more walkable, non-automotive city. I would hope that someday it'll all be redeveloped along the lines of, although not to the extent of Brody Oaks. And I want to stress that those buildings are a lot taller, and the density is probably much greater than I would ever want to support on this stretch. But it would be an amenity to the neighborhood if we had businesses we could walk and bike to on our front door, so to speak. And I don't know if if this gets in the way of that or not, I'm trying to puzzle it out. I don't know if you've had conversations with other property owners, if you heard any whisperings of proposed redevelopments on a larger scale of this area.
I am personally a lifetime cyclist. I have been riding mountain bikes on the Greenbelt since I was 14 years old. I just spent 2 weeks in Amsterdam and was absolutely blown away. And I would actually encourage.
I did that too. Recently, by the way.
It's old, but it's amazing what they've accomplished. It's quiet when you're downtown. You leave, and you don't even feel like the stresses of a city. So I had already thought about bike racks, and I see trying to motivate people from internally of the neighborhood to utilize this as something they don't even have to step into a vehicle for. Right. And again, this is coming from a lifetime cyclist. I probably own 5 bicycles right now, so I'm tracking 100%.
Okay. Thank you.
But just to add, to answer your question a little bit more fully, David, there's no space on this property to do a proper drive-through. It would never get passed by the city of Austin. So it is more of a neighborhood service type of business. That's really, I think, what Jason is going for.
Anna?
Can you be more specific about drinks and food? Can you be more specific about the type of businesses going in here? What kind of drinks?
Well, I mean, I'm probably going to access my experience with some different vendors. I know there's a lot of people creatively doing like food items, a variety, everything from like vegan to just local Austin. I'm from Austin, so local Austin foods, and then local Austin beverage manufacturers, kombucha, not so different. There's a really cute sundry store across on, I think it's on Manchac. And that's one that I used to go to all the time. When I've been in that area, I go to that one. And I like a lot of what I see there, and a lot of, it's a buy Austin, buy Texas kind of personality that I have. So that's what's my vision.
So are you talking about alcohol?
I'm not talking about alcohol. I'm talking about.
So no beer or no like local.
That's not been what I've been thinking. No.
Okay, so you're not looking to get a liquor license then?
No.
Okay. And then.
Oh, excuse me, Anna, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Regarding the surrounding properties, have you talked to the people that live in the houses that are next door to that property? I mean, I know across the street is a tax business, which is, within code, but it looks like the people directly next door, even next door to them, are residential. Like there's people living in those houses. Are they comfortable with that having next door to them?
The residential that's adjacent to me actually formerly was light office. I talked to that gent on and off, and he's actually even helped me with security and trying to deal with security issues over there. He's aware of what I'm doing. I don't see him, he's young, he's progressive. He knows that I'm going for a zoning change. I think he supports it. I think if you asked him, he's fully aware.
But he's not attending tonight, right? He's not here, is he?
I don't believe he is.
No. Okay. And what about the people behind you that have the daycare?
Behind me, directly behind me, is a GR zone back of a law office.
That's correct. Yeah.
Directly behind you that's where the Jack in the Box is, and there's a.
So the property right behind is GR. Is that the one you're speaking of, Anna?
Yes. Right now it's like a daycare.
The one that the property line shares, I believe, is the backside of
the house directly below the Jack in the Box.
Oh.
The lots are deep, so that
on Russell?
Correct.
Okay.
I don't share a property line with them. That space actually it's pretty far away from where we're at. I know what you're talking about. That's deep and far. And I don't have a cursor, but the office, the adjoining in this corner behind there, that property line that I share is with it's the backside of a law office that was just remodeled.
Right, so 4406 Russell shows as Nana's Playhouse Learning Center, which is a daycare.
Which is
That would be across the street, though.
No, behind them.
It's not directly behind, it's adjacent.
Oh,
and
okay, so
The
directly
LO.
behind is the Jack in the Box.
That's the property. Here, let me go to the other view. Hang
So
on.
I think it's office and then Jack in the Box at the corner.
Yeah.
Like, so between the Jack in the Box and then the property line.
Right, it's the drive-through, the Jack in the Box, right, is behind you.
It's
If you're that
There's a
orange.
couple, it's one big property, but yeah, there's a couple properties
Right.
in Jack in the
Yeah,
Box.
it's the Jack in the Box drive-through, and then that gray roof is the
law
day.
office. That big gray roof that her cursor is on,
No.
that's a law.
Oh, that's Dan Stark.
The one on Russell, that's the daycare.
I
Yeah.
think the one on Russell moving south
Right.
of the Jack in the Box. But if you look at the distance of those, I've never heard a child. They feel very distant. The one that feels close would be the one on the north side, and then the law office. Those are the ones that share property lines.
And what about across the street, the tax office, and then the other house that's next to it?
I think the other house next to it, even the one that's straight across the side off.
Right,
It's
directly
a variety of
across
offices over the years.
Merle. So 4406 and 4408 look like they're residential.
Yeah.
Has anybody contacted them about this?
We have not contacted them directly, no. Jason, do you know them?
I've interacted with one of them. I have had some help with security as well. I can't imagine they're anything but excited to see some kind of a zoning change that makes improving that neighborhood happen. So I do have relationships with most of everything that touches the one across the street, the law office. I don't have any relationship with the one to north of me neither, but the gentleman to my south that just downzoned from light office, I've chat with him. It seems like once every 2 or 3 weeks. I'm not aware of any issue with what I'm trying to do with any of those parties.
I mean, we can definitely reach out to them. I just don't have their contact information as far as for 4408 and 4406.
Yeah.
I was just hoping that they would be at the meeting.
Susan, you've had your hand up for quite a while. Would you like to speak next, please?
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I'm trying to also take notes. So let me go back and remember what I wanted to ask. Oh, I was trying to kind of catch up my timelines. Jason, did you own the building when the fire happened, or when did you acquire the building? Have you had it all this time?
My family's owned it for 45 years.
Okay.
I think at least. It's been a long time.
And
that was the countryside when my family first owned that property.
You mentioned the neighbor immediately to the left, which I think is the south of that property, that you've spoken to him. Is that person renting? Have you spoken to the owner of the property?
He's actually in the process of building a duplex. So he has done both a zoning change and has approved permits for a duplex.
Okay, so that's the immediately adjacent property, and you've spoken to that property. Okay, great.
Yes, we speak regularly.
Okay, thank you. So then I was also curious about what kind of parking would you be envisioning for a store that people would be, parking, going in, coming out? How much
There's
space?
already quite a bit. Yeah, if you looked at the property, there's actually quite a bit of concrete already exists and been there for, that's probably the concrete in front of that's been there for 20 plus years. So
you're
like
not envisioning, you're not envisioning a net increase in impervious cover for the structure?
It doesn't seem like it would be necessary.
And let's see, I was going to ask about liquor license, but Anna already did that. There was one more. I was trying to write notes next to my notes, but I can't read it. If I decipher it later, I will raise my hand again. Thank you.
I'll put my email in the chat. You guys are always welcome to email me any questions. And if I don't know the answer, I will get the answer.
Let's see. I don't see anybody else with their hands up, or are y'all satisfied with what? Have anybody else have anything to say?
Ray, a quick question. I'm sorry, I don't have my hand up, but here it is. And these are just, I hope these are appropriate questions, but just curious, given the other similar businesses within like a one block area, what makes that specialty convenience store a viable option for that property?
Well, the good fortune is that not that many, and this is from my experience in business, because the property is nearly owned outright, the necessity for it to be extremely profitable, actually, that's a benefit. So when you've got a property that has the cost of the property is extremely high, then the owner has to work really hard and has to have tons of patrons. I think given the circumstance and the very little bit of money that's owed on it, I think opening a simple business without sky high expectations should be pretty easy.
Secondarily, and again, this is just maybe for the contact team or Ray. At what point of the process do we see the what the plans for that property would actually look like?
Go ahead, Rika.
Sure.
Jason.
So we can keep you guys as involved as you want to be. We'll have to really determine. We'll have to do a site plan or a layout. We'll have to determine, how was all of this going to fit on the property? And then when we get to the point after we're done with the rezone, where we have a good layout, then we can send it over to Ray and you guys can review it and look at it.
That would be good to have some idea. Did you have another question, Marion? Because then I've got something to say to you.
Go ahead, Ray. Thank you.
Okay. I just wanted to, at this point, just to have an idea of what square footage you were looking at for your store.
I think Rika and I are still discussing those details. I don't have at this point, I don't have here's the problem, guys. It's like I can only invest so much energy into the after zoning until I have zoning. Because it costs a lot of architects and engineers to come up with ideas and concepts. If I don't have a destination that makes sense, it's a little bit catch-22 situation. I think in regards to the details.
To kind of add to that, and I saw Anna's question in the chat. Thank you, Anna. This is not going to be a big building. It's going to be very small because it's going to have some parking and utilize what's already there. As far as impervious cover, he will not maximize his impervious cover, you guys. I guarantee it. That's why I can say after the rezone, we can send you guys over the layout and we can work with you on the layout a little bit, get your opinion on that. I think that'd be really good. That's what we've done with other neighborhoods. It's how I like to operate. I know it's also, he can't really say exactly how much impervious cover because we have to lay out with a civil engineer and really define and make sure that everything, all the laws and all the ordinances are being met properly by the city. But it will be very small. I mean, it's going to be, what's a range, Jason? 2,000 square feet or less?
I was going to say 15 to 2,000. Yeah. The lot's not big enough the lot just simply is not big enough to plan for anything of a tremendous scale. I'm just preliminarily, that's the best.
Rika, do you know off your hand what the maximum impervious cover is for GR?
Give me 5. Yeah, it's 75%.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That is partial answer to Anna's question.
Okay.
Susan, you found your question?
No, I was just pointing out that we have two people who've come into the meeting who still need to introduce themselves, Missy Bledsoe and Rodrigo. So when we have a minute, we should do that.
Can I ask
Okay.
a question or make an observation if nobody else?
Yes.
So I think this reflects my understanding, and if I'm wrong, please tell me. But once you get your zoning, or once a property has zoning, you could do other things with it, or whoever owns the property could do other things besides what you're talking about. And I think it's important to be mindful of that, because things could change, heaven forbid, but Jason could get struck by lightning or something, and then somebody else could acquire that property and do something very different from everything we've discussed in this meeting, right? And I just think that the contact team needs to understand that as we move to a decision, and there may be a way, maybe one of the council offices could help us with this, to stipulate we approve, provided that it actually does this or that, or that impervious cover is no more than X. I'm just suggesting that as a conversation we probably would like to have at some point.
And I want to tag on to that before we go on to the next person, and that is that your nearest competitor, which you mentioned over there, is Beatniks Market. And I wanted to point out that they're 4,220 square feet. They're doing quite well with an LR zoning. And it also, an LR zoning is one way of dealing with what David is talking about here about, I'll give you an example that the neighborhood really wouldn't like. With a GR zoning, you could put in some kind of a little boutique motel there. And the neighborhood probably would not like that even a little bit. I don't have a list of everything that you can do with GR, but we've had this come up before where what we ended up recommending was LR, and LR was plenty sufficient for what the person said he wanted to do. And it also partially avoids what David is talking about what might happen later to the property. So I just throw that out there for future consideration of the contact team right now. And then I'm going to, if there's any other questions. Okay, Rodrigo, you want to introduce yourself? Rodrigo Cantu has joined us late.
Don't worry, guys. Sorry, I joined late. I'm a neighbor here at Southwood.
And then Missy is our membership secretary. If you would introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Missy Bledsoe. As usual, I thought the meeting was at 6:30. So yes, thank you for yeah, I'm late.
Okay.
Sorry.
Is everybody any other questions on the Merle property? All righty. Well, thank you very much, Rika and Jason, and we will at the very latest we will have something of recommendation at the time when you get to the point for your planning commission presentation.
Thank you.
And we'll have some backup for the planning commission and maybe before then. Okay, so thank you very much. And unless you just want to stay and listen to Michael, well, you can. We'll let you go. Michael, Rachel. Go ahead, Michael. Or April, or whoever wants to present.
Okay, great. Thank you all very much. Appreciate y'all tolerating me again. And we've appreciated your help with the sign variance at BOA recently. Thank you, Ray, for testifying there and getting that through. I don't know, I think it's under construction, but it'll obviously be implemented pretty quickly. I do have a presentation as well. I'm going to go fast. I'm going to ask folks to tell me to pause or I can always go back to part of it pretty quickly. So first and foremost, of course, thank you for having me. As I indicated, I represent St. David's Healthcare Partnership and Healthcare Facilities Development Corporation. There's a bunch of condos there, and they're owned by both St. David's and I'll refer to them as HFDC, and that's Wade Ferguson, who's also here with me today. He is with Healthcare Facilities Corporation. I'll go through this. As I mentioned, St. David's Healthcare and HFDC are applying for rezoning on a piece of property along Ben White. 1 second here, let me just see. I just realized Gaudini was reminding me, these are medical condos, not residential condos. I didn't mean to say residential. I hope y'all probably know that and know where this is, right up on Ben White, and we'll see in a minute exactly where it is. Anyway, we're seeking to rezone this piece of property along Ben White. It's next to the South Austin Medical Center. The property in question is currently used for some older medical office structures. They're from the 1980s. The existing structures have reached the end of their life, and St. David's and HFDC are planning to redevelop them as new, modernized medical offices. They're going to add about 136,000 square feet of additional medical office space beyond what exists today, which we believe is critical to helping to meet Austin's growing healthcare needs. Let me go down here. To accomplish this, we're requesting a rezoning to a designation known as commercial highway, which would allow us to increase the height while decreasing the amount of pavement on site, known as impervious cover, as you all have already discussed. So this rezoning designation asks you to build up vertically rather than building out horizontally. We're going to get into the details of the zoning, but I wanted to quickly step back and tell you kind of how the city reviews projects like this. You already know this, I think, but some may not. This is just a quick reference. On the screen, you can see a simplified version of the city's review process. It's split up into several stages. The first one is zoning. In that stage, that's when the city establishes a high level of regulations for a project size and scale, and for how someone can use a property, such as for commercial or residential, or in this particular case, medical office. This is the stage we're talking about today, and our request involves increasing allowable building height while decreasing allowable impervious cover. However, as we all know, there's a lot of other things that go into development projects, such as traffic studies, utility service, environmental drainage facilities, and lots more. These are all things the city has established extensive citywide rules for, and these rules will apply regardless of what our zoning is. The city will review our project to ensure compliance with all those rules, and that's done during the site plan process, which is, you can see here in the middle. And then only after the city confirms that we're in full compliance are we allowed to get a building permit, which is the vertical structure itself, which also has to comply with the International Building Code, along with other locally adopted building code revisions. So that's the quick process. I'm going to focus a little bit just on the first two stages, the site plan and zoning. As I mentioned, the zoning lays out the certain standards that you're allowed to build to, but it is not kind of a anything goes scenario. You have to meet all of the general citywide regulations that I've already mentioned. Also, assuming you can meet all of these, you also have to develop, be sure that your project complies with all the zoning regulations, floor to area ratio, height, setbacks, impervious cover. So to the extent there's any conflict at all among all these different rules and restrictions, it's always the most restrictive rule and regulation that's going to apply to a site. So what does all this mean in practice? Here you can see some common things the city reviews for and generally requires at the site plan stage in the process. And I'm not going to, you can read English. I'm not going to go over all these. I'm happy to answer any questions about any of these. All of these things, though, are reviewed regardless of what the zoning is. what I do want to point out is the image to the right shows you the detailed type of documentation that's required for a site plan review. This particular image is pulled from our most recent site plan that's been submitted at this property. We realize that we do need additional height at this property, which is why we've filed this zoning case. Otherwise, we would be limited to the 60 feet that now exists there, which I'll talk about in a moment. But we do have a site plan. This site plan has two buildings on either side. There's a parking garage in the middle, and then two buildings on either side of the parking garage that you see there. So the zoning, the standards are more high level, as I mentioned, and as you all have already discussed in connection with the other case, mainly dealing with things like building height, scale, placement, impervious cover, and allowable uses. And this is the type of application that we are presenting on today, is a change in the zoning. Oops, sorry. Here you can see the site in question along Ben White Boulevard at the intersection of James Casey Street. It's directly across from the South Austin Medical Center and right on the highway access road there. It's located in a neighborhood, and in what the neighborhood plan and the city have designated as a, quote, hospital district. That's how it's identified in the South Austin Combined Neighborhood Plan. So it's not just, it's this piece, but it's everything that just lit up there is considered the hospital district in the South Austin Combined Neighborhood Plan. So our project, which would develop new expanded medical office space, is consistent with this designation. So here is what I wanted to focus on for a moment. You can see what zoning would mean. Our property currently is GR. It has a vertical mixed use density bonus. The VMU would allow it to go up to 90% of the site to be paved. It would allow on the base zoning up to 60 feet of height and 2-to-1 floor to area ratio. That's the baseline. The vertical mixed use does allow you to go up to 90 feet and unlimited floor to area ratio, but that's if you use the bonus. In contrast, the zoning that we've requested, the commercial highway or CH, would reduce the allowable impervious cover and set a hard limit on floor to area ratio while allowing different tiers of height. And I'm going to show you that in 1 second. The allowable uses are very similar. Medical office is allowed in both. That's what we're going to be doing. There are a number of other commercial and residential uses that are permitted. I've just given you examples of other common uses here, retail and restaurant, which are allowed in both. So this is a table at the bottom right, shows you the tiers of height that you're allowed in CH. It is directly related to the amount of impervious cover you have. As you reduce your impervious cover, you're allowed to go up. So you can see here, if you have 85% impervious cover, you can only do 60 feet. And obviously you can read, as you reduce your impervious cover, you're allowed to go a little bit higher by 20 feet, and then 10 feet, 10 feet. So I also wanted to just point out that kind of the range that's shown here on the right table is the 60 feet to 120 feet is fully consistent, we think, with the hospital district. As you can see here, right across the street, the zoning for South Austin Medical Center kind of has similar heights ranging from 80 feet to 120 feet. And then wanted to just talk quickly about timeline. Application is currently being reviewed by staff, which is the first of 3 steps in the zoning process. Once staff completes their review, makes a recommendation, they then bring the case to the Planning Commission for a public hearing and an advisory vote. That recommendation then goes to City Council for a public hearing and a final vote, as you well know. One reason why we're trying to move a little bit more quickly is because we already have the site plan in for the medical office building, and it's we've already gotten one review, one set of comments back. So we are trying to move to the extent possible, move forward, hopefully by the end of the year. So just to quickly recap, the zoning is high level, sets kind of the size, impervious cover. Every project has to still comply with all the general regulations related to traffic and utilities. The in this project, St. David's Healthcare and Healthcare Facilities Development Corp. are redeveloping the property to provide new expanded medical office space. I think this nobody here needs to be told that since the 1980s, the city and the healthcare needs have increased meaningfully. And then finally, I think this project, the project will absolutely fully comply with all city regulations. The request to rezone it only is being sought to provide that increased height in exchange for the decreased impervious cover. And so thank you for your patience and allowing me to just run through that.
All righty. I'm not going to go first this time. Y'all have questions. Let's see. Let's see. I don't see in the participants page, I don't see anybody with their hand up.
David
really have no questions?
David does.
Okay, David.
Yes, thank you for that. And this isn't a question about what you're planning to do, which I don't see anything objectionable about. But following up on what I mentioned last time, what I'd like to see, with or without this thing going forward, is a robust partnership with St. David's and the neighborhood on behalf of, among other things, non-automotive connections. And particularly, as I mentioned last time, I would really want to have a serious conversation about a trail using some of St. David's land between your parking garages on the western end of your property
And the railroad.
Yeah, and if I can share my screen, I don't know if this will be a first for me. Not the first for me, but let's see if I can. I
can pull it up as well if you want me to, but.
Well, here you go. So this is very crude. And I did this last week, and can you see it? All these lines? Mm-hmm. Okay, I did this last week, self-taught. But just to be clear, this is obviously St. David's, and this is the property in question where my cursor is going. Mm-hmm. This is the city's bike route 31. That actually it's the spine of a north-south. It's a north-south bikeway that goes all the way from 183 down to Slaughter Lane, and it travels along Garden Villa, turns at Bannister, and crosses Spinwhite into our neighborhood here. And as I mentioned last time, this is a heck of a hill. This is a really robust hill when you're on a bike. Yes, meanwhile, the city, to its credit, this yellow line more or less signifies where the city is looking at doing a nice, relatively flat, straight trail, not in the UP right-of-way, but just next to it, all the way from Barton Springs Road to the north side of Benwhite. This is another bikeway we have. It obviously continues. This green line is the Bergstrom Spur that's been approved, and they're looking to find funding. Maybe they found it already. So what I'm really interested in doing is and I think this really helps St. David's as well, is getting a connection really from what the city is looking at here along UP beneath Benwhite through the St. David's property and connecting in any number of ways. And this is obviously very conceptual, but you'd have to do a couple of switchbacks here, and then just to the west of those parking garages, there's space. And then you could turn here and go to James Casey, or you could continue straight and link up with Vincent. And this is just a spur that demonstrates how you could also have a safe routes to school to St. Elementary. And I see this as very beneficial to St. David's. Active transportation should be a part of your mission, but also you have serious constraints on parking now. I know this because I visited the hospital many times, and some of your visitors at least might be able to bike or walk there along this route. Also, I know some of the patients at St. David's, as a part of the therapy, they need to walk. Some of them walk along a sidewalk now. Well, this might be a nice 12-foot wide trail that they could walk along, weather permitting. So I think there's multiple benefits for St. David's. And if you pull back for the city, I didn't really, just to try to get a big picture, you know, this route continues and comes very close to where it butts with the Violet Crown Trail, which since last weekend, they opened a new northern segment in Sunset Valley. You can take that all the way to Circle C now. And then, of course, you got the Bergson Spur that's going to travel eventually all the way out to the airport. I'd love to see a hike and bike trail along the whole length of Union Pacific. The point is, this could be the nexus of where many of these great trails come together. And I think St. David's is a critical player here. This connection would be extremely beneficial for making this happen, almost like the Seahome area where you've got so many trails coming together just across the river. This would be the focal point of a lot of trails in South Central Austin. So I don't know how to go about going forward with this, Michael, but I'd be very interested in working with council offices and city staff and trail advocates and you guys to try to make this vision happen. So I'll leave it at that and ask for comments or feedback.
Yeah. So first of all, yes, and I've already elevated it internally, David, after our first conversation. So I'm glad you're raising it again, and you need to keep raising it. And I'm grateful that Councilmember Velasquez and Councilmember Alter are here as well. So that area is an area where I think everybody here knows it's kind of a no build area. So you know where you'd be between the parking garage and the railroad, basically, in that space. So that space is space that we should sit down and talk about, because they're not going to put anything there. There is an electric easement, and I just forgot how deep it is, but that's easy to get, David. And I think we should at some point sit down. I know that we talked about the hill on Bannister, which I enjoy climbing, you not so much. And I know that Ben Leffler is also an avid bicyclist. And I think after we get through the budget, it is St. David's. It's not this project. HCFD is not involved, obviously, with the hospital itself. So, but it is a separate conversation that we should have. Absolutely.
Yep. To be continued.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I do. I think somebody had a question about square footage. Ray, can I answer that? I know that was posted.
Yeah, go ahead.
You can do it in your order, whatever you want.
Rodrigo, you had a question a while ago, and then Missy after you.
Yes, that's my question related. Can you give us an idea? I mean, ideally, we would understand the square footage that is allowable today, and how much more square footage you would be allowed by going to the rezoning.
So, how much are we allowed?
Or just the news with the new zoning, or
Yeah.
the building plans that you have, what's the ballpark on the square footage?
So our existing the existing building is 50,860 feet. That's the existing medical condo that's there. We are adding plus or minus 145,148 square feet to that site. So that'd be a total of 196,008 square feet, I think, is what's on the site plan that's pending, or that there's going to be some tweaks to it, but we've in our update, we have to file an update to respond to comments. So, but those are the rough numbers.
And just a follow up on that, do you have an idea on how many jobs would are planned for this to generate? Like, how many people are going to be working in there?
I don't know the exact number. I just know that it's a lot, and that's why there's a parking garage there. I know, some folks, and I include myself, would like to see a city with no parking garages. I get it, but one issue here obviously is we're balancing neighborhood needs and to not have folks park on the street. We've tried, as you well know, we've talked about it before. At the last meeting, we built a second parking garage. St. David's does not like to build parking garages because that means that they're not spending money on medical services. But the hope is that the parking garage will accommodate those employees.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Missy and then Marion.
Mine was just a funny comment.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll take it. I need any bit of humor at this point. Trust me.
Good.
Marion?
Question about the traffic. That's quite a racetrack through there on Ben White, as you come from Bannister to South First. And I'm a patient at Texas Oncology, so I know how it is to get in and out of that square.
Can you give me 1 second so I can figure out where you are? I'm looking at our site. I'm looking at Radom. Bannister's on the other side of the
right, but I mean Ben White between
Okay.
Bannister and South First is boom. It's a fast thoroughfare. And so cars, it's a difficult right turn from James Casey to onto Ben White.
I'm just looking at it. I'm listening. I'm just looking at it on the Google
So
map.
I'm just wondering, an increased number of cars coming through there trying to make that turn, or how are those kind of things addressed in all the planning of this project?
Yeah. So we did a traffic impact analysis that with the site plan, a full-blown TIA, and have done some mitigation, or there will be mitigation. There is no driveway onto the service road. That's not permitted by TxDOT because it's too close, to your point, to South First. So people will have to, and I believe a lot of people do this because you all experience it a lot more than me. They miss that James Casey light and they have to go around to Radom and come around. I'm sure you've seen people do that. But the roads are where they are. James Casey's where it is. Not great. I get it. And lots of us, I know Ray personally and many others have seen people miss that James Casey entrance. I've actually talked to you all about a better signage on Radom that would require city approval, that would overhang over Radom to direct people to the hospital and the emergency room, because that's where I think the problems are. I haven't taken that up with y'all, but I think I've shown some of y'all when we were on site before, walking the site, those images, but I don't know. I can only acknowledge that there is this issue in that the access will be off Radom, and on James Casey, no access on the service road.
Thank you.
Just a related traffic question. Does St. David's give out bus passes to?
Yeah, I asked that question as well. They do not currently. I thought it was a good idea, Ray, and I've asked Mark to elevate that internally with HR. It might get better when there's a fee for the parking garage, but there's no fee for the employees to park in the garage right now. And although everybody here knows that with gas prices, which are inevitably going to go up, the cost of driving your car is also going to go up. And so I'm not sure the answer, to solving the need of having more multimodal is, David pointed out, opportunities and options, but certainly one that needs to be elevated. It needs to be part of the discussion, Ray. So thank you for raising that. I did mention that to Mark Worsham as well, who I think you've met and talked to.
And then let's see, before I ask my next question, let's see if there's anybody else. Anybody else have their hand up? Anna, you want to go next?
So I was wondering, Michael, if you had an opportunity to talk to, is it St. David's or is it HCF? Is it HCF, right? It's not really.
HCF, yeah. So Wade is, so the relationship has been a long-standing. St. David's usually partners with HCFD to build the medical office buildings, which you see that are adjacent to all the hospitals throughout Central Texas. So Wade and Ken Ferguson have been doing that for 2 decades. Wade, I don't even know how long, but a long time.
Right. So if the buck stops here, would be HCF then, right?
No, it's in this particular case, it's St. David's owns half of those medical. These are condoized, these are condo offices, and St. David's has purchased 50% of them. I don't know if it's 51-49 or if it's 50-50, Wade, but is it 50-50, Wade?
It's 51-49.
And who's the 51? I'm afraid to ask.
St. David's.
Okay, so there you go. Thank God. St. David's Healthcare. St. David's Healthcare owns 51% of this project, and
okay.
HCFD owns the 49%. HCFD has been trying to assemble this for over a decade to get the medical offices, because this structure, y'all are familiar with it, has just outlived its life at this point.
Yeah, I've been to appointments there before. I mean, it wasn't crumbling or anything, but
no, but just
and I dare say that 80 years ago wasn't too long ago for some of us, right? Maybe for Wade and a few of the younger folks, but it wasn't that long ago.
It wasn't that long ago for me, but
right.
medicine has leapfrogged me.
Yes,
and
thank goodness.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I was wondering if you had an opportunity to talk to St. David's about the property at 4335?
I did, and I've also talked to Wade about that property, on James Casey. It is not listed yet on the market. It is, it's shown on TCAT at like $335,000, I believe. It's somebody's extremely proud of that property in terms of value. But it is.
And of course, you know that the reason why I talked about it is because of what I envisioned there and what other people have envisioned there, as far as a place for the medical personnel to be able to have a place to deflate. Because I know that after the parking garage, luckily haven't been to St. David's recently, so I don't even know if the new parking garage is up yet. I know those things can move fast. But I know that some of that green area was going to be lost when we did the walkthrough. And so there's less of a place for the employees to go and deflate. And after COVID or it's ongoing, right? COVID is still with us. But the extreme portion of the pandemic has made us more sensitive to what the healthcare workers are going through and how necessary it is for them to be able to have a place to go and deflate. And so that's why I feel it's so important that $300,000 is nothing to St. David's for their pockets, right? And I think and the investment that it would take for them to acquire that property would be well worth the health of their employees.
And I want to add an anecdote to that too. So my last 18 years of my working life was a very high pressure, multi-deadline every day job, and did not rise to the level of what some of the medical personnel have experienced. But in my case, I really valued a lot the fact that I could go over to I could walk over to Duncan Park there by Shoal Creek and relax from time to time. I called it decompression walks. And I think Anna has a a good point here. I was just visiting with a nurse today who worked at the St. David's ER all during COVID, and then was a travel nurse, and then she is now doing home care, and she is, it's like, you know, it's sort of like me after I retired, that there's just a whole lot of stuff that she had to see every day that she's really benefiting from now, having left behind. But there's still a lot of people there that can't do that. There's a lot of people at St. David's that need some space to take for their welfare, really. And that's I just wanted to throw that in, and then I'll go on to Michael. Did you want to reply any more about the 4435 property?
No, I think, we've talked about it before. I didn't want you to think that it's fallen on deaf ears. We have done an investigation, and I think, I know Wade has as well. And it's not something that's being ignored. I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Okay. Questions before I go on to my next question? I'm gonna see anybody else got a question. I don't see any hands up. I wanted to ask you then about your transformer problem. I noticed that you're going to need another large transformer, and I recently saw the presentation by Austin Energy about the supply chain problems with that. And I was wondering, where are you on the transformer list as far as obtaining a transformer?
So, man, it's kind of scary. We have a very limited supply of transformers in the city of Austin, which means a lot of the construction you see will end up being empty and unoccupied. You won't be able to move in until you get a transformer. I have urged Wade and Kent and Mark Worsham that they need to start looking for one. The city of Austin Energy is allowing people to bring in refurbished transformers from certain suppliers in Canada and Mexico to utilize because of the supply chain issues. You cannot reserve a transformer that's sitting in inventory right now at Austin Energy. There's very limited supply. I can give you the numbers, very limited, unless and until you have completely built out the electric infrastructure and have had it inspected and approved by an Austin Energy inspector, which typically happens after most of your building is built. And that's when they will literally tag electronically one of those pieces of inventory, one of the transformers, to then deliver to you. So people are being told, and some people who own single family homes and subdivisions with houses that are built are being told that it might be up to 6 months to a year before they can move in. It's a big mess.
So basically, we're talking about something I didn't realize when I asked the question. Then we're talking about really sort of the end of the process. Then you start this whole new process unless you actually manage to find a refurbished transformer.
Yes, I am told by them that they're hoping that the supply gets a little bit better. They're actually trying to pool resources with San Antonio to have better purchasing power with some of the suppliers from China and elsewhere to get some of these transformers delivered to the city. But they have told me that typically in pre-COVID, they used to have a bigger supply because they would anticipate, based on the requests for not service extension requests, what's the permit, Wade, that you got to do for electricity?
ESPA.
ESPA, that's right. An ESPA, when you do your, I don't even know what the acronym stands for, but you file this ESPA with Austin Energy, and once they approve it, they then begin to evaluate whether they're going to have enough inventory by the time they get to you. That process broke down during COVID in an extreme way, which is why we're having this problem. But they're gonna start looking for refurbished transformer, but these are large transformers that they need, so it's not going to be an easy undertaking. But we've got some time. We've got probably a year before we actually need it delivered. So this is going to be Wade's new profession is buying and selling refurbished transformers. And I will tell you this, I mean, I know another client that bought a refurbished one and has it sitting in their warehouse waiting to then deliver it to their project. It's crazy.
And thank you.
I would have never have thought, by the way, that I would know this much about transformers or transformer supply and how it's impacting the city's ability to deliver housing. It's extraordinary.
Yeah, I just accidentally lucked into that particular meeting when they were talking about the supply problem, is how I found out about it. Okay, I'm going to stop for if anybody else has a question before I go on to my next question.
Ray, they're going to let you ask me questions all night long. Keep going.
Well, my next question is, in CH, is there any mixed use in CH?
Well, you're allowed to have a mix of uses. That's why on that slide I had, you could do restaurant or retail. It's not part of the programming for a medical office building. But the opportunity, especially, they're looking to maybe build one of the buildings first and then the second one. There may be that opportunity if a tenant comes forward and has an interest of doing something like that. If there was that possible demand.
Okay, well, the reason I'm thinking about is, coffee shops, restaurants, someplace for personnel to gather, that kind of thing. If I'm not promoting it, but it seems fairly logical, which is why I asked the question about the mixed use.
Yeah. No, it's allowed. And I mentioned, because I know that was a question that you had raised, and I mentioned it to Wade, and the medical office buildings typically do have some space. There's going to be some operating rooms in this structure as well, ORs, I think on the ground floor, Wade, is that on the first phase? So you're going to have, obviously, family members and friends of patients waiting. And so they're going to have to not just have a waiting area, but probably have, some areas for them to, get food or vending or whatever. I don't know if it's going to be vending or service. That's also going to depend on whether there's a tenant that has an interest. But the ability exists in terms of your specific question, mixed use. The ability to do that as a permitted use does exist.
Okay, so I'm going to, before I go on, anybody else got a question? Okay, then my next question is related to mixed use, and that is that, for example, if you go look over on South Congress, particularly on the east side where you have all the mixed use towers, apartment buildings, there's a lot of vacant space in that first floor retail. And the reason for that is because people can't afford it, I mean, frankly. And what I'm leading up to is just the possibility that I want to enter into your thinking that you might have some first floor space in which nonprofits could operate. And the specific nonprofit, which you've already heard about from me and the team has heard about, would be someplace like Lirios Pediatrics. And they have right now, they have a 5-year lease over there before it becomes another tower like all the rest of them on the other side of South Congress. But they are going to be they're going to need to move. They're not going to be able to afford it after both. Well, they're going to be displaced by the tower building a tower there, but also thinking long term into their what they can afford. If I just want to put it into everybody's thinking, including the contact team, that it would be great to have some space that a nonprofit could afford, not free necessarily. Free would be wonderful. I'm sure they would love free, but I don't really expect free.
And Ray, I forgot, you did send me some material, and now I'm misremembering, because you mentioned St. David's Foundation in the material, but I forgot whether you indicated whether is it Lirios? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Lirios Pediatrics does
are they
primary health care. They won't be funded by the foundation. That
well, are they getting any grants? Have they applied for any grants from the foundation?
No, the foundation has a big hold on new. They're in about a 1-year hold on deciding who they're going to continue to fund and who they're going to add.
Just so everybody knows, the foundation that we're talking about was created when HCA first came to Austin and was looking to enter the market, and Neil Kasurik, blessed memory, had this amazing idea. He approached them and said, I will give you St. David's Healthcare Medical Center on Red River downtown at 32nd Street. In exchange, you, HCA, will create a foundation, St. David's Foundation, and 40% of your net operating profit has to go to this foundation. So ever since the 90s, money has gone to St. David's Foundation which generates these grants that we're referencing. It's, I believe, up to $70 million a year now in grants as a result of this incredibly wise leadership move by Neil Kasurik.
Yeah, but I just to be clear to the contact team, your client is HCA Healthcare. You can't actually speak for the foundation.
That is correct. Thank you for making that clarification. That is absolutely correct. Thank you, Ray.
And so, let's go back to my example of Lirios. Lirios could, if St. David's could foundation should add them, they could be funded for something like a vaccination program. They can't be funded for something like the pediatric primary care. The foundation will not fund that. I recently confirmed that for the second time. Let's see. I think that's the only point I wanted to make. Let's see. Okay, I do remember one more thing. Going back to traffic. You and I talked when we met outdoor last fall about getting across James Casey down there where Marion's talking about it. It's extremely disorganized traffic-wise, I'll put it that way. We need to get people across James Casey safe down there where it's not safe to cross, frankly.
Yeah,
I realize that this comes into what Ryan and Alter and Jose Velasquez, that's one of the reasons that I wanted them here, because, this is not your direct responsibility. I just want everybody to be aware of that too. But we still have this problem to be solved.
Yeah. just so that everybody's on the same page, are you talking about where it says Morris Joyce right here? So here's Ben White, here's the structure. Or are you talking about at Radham? There are crosswalks here, but I think
I'm talking about down here by Ben White, where people are coming across from your redeveloped property, and I
right here.
suspect right in there, yeah. You know, you're going to want something there besides to get people across there.
Yeah, I agree. And Wade, do you know whether the site plan calls for an off-site crosswalk? I don't know what this is a private drive. I don't know whether the city allows that, but we probably need to ask Greg.
Yeah, we should ask. I will say that in my experience, I know the city does not like to place crosswalks that close to each other. I know there's one just south of that. And they also will probably be hesitant to put in a crosswalk at something that is not an intersection, just like you said.
Yeah. We can, I think we can follow up with staff, Wade, and ask Greg Griffin, the engineer, about a crosswalk here, and and engage, since half of the crosswalks in Councilmember Alter's jurisdiction and half of it's in Councilmember Velasquez. That helps, I think.
Yeah, and to that point, I think it might be worth exploring with ATD and the council offices, and it probably would take a council office push. But the city could install rapid rectangular flashing beacons. So they're not the things that you see that people push a button and it stops traffic, but they're just continuous flashing devices that might, at the very least, draw attention to crossers in that area if we're unable to make movement on the actual crosswalk.
Yeah, I want to say that I don't think the city will allow a pedestrian hybrid beacon there. Does it? Do you know about that, April?
Well, April's talking about where they just are flashing constantly. She was explaining this to me earlier. So it has a different acronym. What's the acronym?
Yeah,
April?
it's not a PHB, which is the one where people push the buttons, but it's an RRFB, which is a rapid rectangular flashing beacon. Let me see if I can find a photo and put it in the chat.
An RRFB. That's your new thing, Ray. You're gonna fill the neighborhood with RRFBs.
Yeah, I was thinking about my Visa card, and with that acronym and the tap to.
April, why don't we get back to Ray on that, because I do think we should do a little investigating and find out if that wouldn't be. I think, was it you, Marion? I think, to Marion's point too, if you've got something flashing there, it just puts everybody on alert that there's pedestrians up and down James Casey, not just there, but further south as you're going south.
Yeah, and just at the very minimum, if you had an island out there like you do at some crossings, like even on James Casey, you can find some very I'm not on James Casey, but I mean, even on Jones Road near us, you can find an island. They have a few places where there's an island where a pedestrian can stop and be relatively safe from the traffic.
Yeah,
and flashing lights, anything that causes a motorist to have to stop and think, basically.
April posted one in the chat. Thank you, April. So the people could get a sense of one option that's out there, and we can investigate, getting something like that, which I think would be helpful.
Okay. All righty. Anybody else? I think I've run out.
A good question.
Anna?
Thank you, Ray.
Anna, just a sec.
Yeah, regarding St. Elmo Elementary School.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Yeah, can you share about that, Ray? I know you would share info with us.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that related to, well, for one thing, the principal there at St. Elmo's knows exactly who does not have insurance. It's just, he knows that about the students. And so that would be if somebody could coordinate that, that would be a referral source for Lirios again, since that's the only people they take. I mean, they won't even take somebody that has Medicare. It's got to be no insurance. The other main thing that the principal told me when I interviewed him was that they could really use up to 10 pergolas for shade. And so that's, I would say that was one of the main things that he thought that he could use that would be a community benefit that the contact team and the neighborhood would be interested in. And then there's a couple of other things. I presume that St. David's has landscapers, but their soccer field is really rough and they play on it anyway. And they really need to have the soccer field landscaped where it's not so rough. And then the third thing that he mentioned was that they have a pergola there already, a very large one, in which he would like to have a tennis court and a pickleball court painted on. So those are sort of 1, 2, 3, his 3 biggest things. And then I would add, like I say, the coordination with Lirios. And go ahead, Anna, go ahead. You had something else you wanted to say?
Where is he going to put the pergolas? Here's the big one.
It would be north of the big one. It would be all in that big empty space out there.
All this? He'd have all of them here?
Out in there. That's where he wants to put them.
Does he want them all to be have cement under them, or he just wants something to provide?
No, he doesn't want a concrete base thing like that necessarily. He wants up to 10 pergolas big enough for 25 children apiece.
Kind of like this size, this smaller size.
Right.
Okay. I forgot if his contact information was in that email, but I'll get it. I'll get it from you offline, Ray.
Yeah. And you saw a picture there. The soccer field is off to the left there.
Yeah.
In the picture that Michael showed.
Yeah, I think what he was thinking about was for when they do the outdoor classrooms, because they do outdoor classrooms at St. Elmo sometimes. And he has picnic tables, but they're not protected. And so
yeah,
it can be kind of unbearable out there.
And practically unlike the rest of the neighborhood, there's almost no trees there.
Yeah,
like
I mean, he got a grant and had a bunch of trees planted, but I don't think in my lifetime they're gonna provide shade. So, it takes a while for those oaks to grow.
Yeah.
And then there was also about the lab work. Remember that, right?
Yes, that was also something you would want to talk to your VP about. The main thing that Lirios needs is they need somebody to do their lab work for them, which is really interesting to me because that's exactly what we ran into back in the late 80s when I helped start El Buen Samaritano. We needed somebody to do our lab work for free, and we did not have anybody. And that's one of their main things that they need, and that involves coordination with St. David's, and they would really like for St. David's to do their lab work. And
well, as you probably know, St. David's doesn't do any lab work. It's all contracted out. There's third parties, but certainly, we know who does the lab work, so it's certainly something we can ask about. But St. David's itself doesn't do lab work, right?
Okay.
It's like we all go get our blood work done at Pathology Associates, right? They've got offices scattered throughout Austin. They're I think the primary lab technicians.
Okay. And then there's another coordination effort there too. As you know, the triage nurse, people are still going to the emergency room that don't need to go to the emergency room, but because they don't have a relationship with a doctor usually. And so if the triage nurse in St. David's could send those people over to Lirios, I mean, for example, that's exactly what Foundation Communities does. They have very few people there that aren't insured children, but that would be something that we'd like for you to talk to your VP about.
If as you know, Ray, I don't know the rules specifically. I always keep hearing it kind of beat into my head. If somebody shows up to the emergency room, they have an obligation to care for them regardless of whether they have insurance or whether they have period. And you can't release somebody from the ER to go somewhere else until you've treated them. So it'd have to be a program where people are intercepted at some point in time before they walk into that emergency room.
That's what the triage nurse does.
Would they where would they see them? They would see them at the elementary school, or what's the
No,
thing?
that would be, I've talked to them back when I was in charge of my father's health, that's who you talk to first in the emergency room. And some people don't need to be admitted. And if there was somebody that they could call for uninsured patients, it would actually be a big plus for St. David's too, because they wouldn't have uninsured care.
Well,
I know what you're talking about with the requirements. That's the federal requirement.
It is.
But it doesn't apply. They evaluate the person and about whether they actually before they actually need an emergency room. They don't. I mean, they're not going to throw them out. I mean, obviously, if they don't want to go to Lirios, they're not going to throw these people out anywhere. They'll treat them all right.
But I will commit to find out legally what we can do and ethically, because I know that St. David's, as you well know, I think I've mentioned, spends over $100 million in uncompensated care each year, in part because of this federal obligation. So I don't know whether there's going to be a comfort level with somebody who is triaging. You're accurate. There is a nurse that triages you as you're coming in. Whether there's a comfort level about not providing treatment if somebody's come in to ask for it and sending them somewhere else before providing that treatment. I just don't know. That feels like something that St. David's is going to want to really, I just think they're going to have some concern. They cannot violate the federal law. There's too much at stake.
All righty,
it's a fair point, but it's a fair point, and it's a broken healthcare system. I don't need to tell anybody on this call about that.
Right.
Yeah. Let's see. I want to wind up pretty quick since we're already 10 minutes over, but does anybody else? Marion, did you want to say something? Oh, okay. Anybody else want to say anything before we call it quits?
Well, I would end by thanking everybody, and I don't know what the next steps are in terms of a process, but we certainly would like your support, for this pretty specific project. I mean, we have a site plan already in, and would like to proceed with getting the zoning and having it all synced up so that we can get the site development permit. I think Wade's anxious to get that so that the building permit would proceed. And just one final thing, Wade, is it a year or 2 years after you pull your building permit before at least the first building is built? How long will it take to do that construction?
Yeah, so we are the phase 1 building. It's probably because demolition is involved, so we'll be getting a demo permit and starting there. Our buildings are usually 10 to 11 months, but with demo, we're looking at about a year of construction. So we're hoping to start, break ground after getting building permits pretty quick.
Okay. Well,
I did have a question.
Go ahead, Susan.
Sorry to jump in so late with this.
George. It's George.
It's George. You can call me whatever you want as long as you're smiling. we were talking about the buildings currently on the site being built in the 80s. What do you know the anticipated, and I know this is not completely, not something you can predict entirely. What is the anticipated lifespan of the useful life of these buildings?
The new ones?
Yes.
Wade, that's, I mean,
Yeah. So a lifespan is, especially these days, the quality, if you're talking about like a new building, in the past 65 years, I believe is what a lot of people look at for the economic lifespan of a building. They can obviously be extended with, keeping up with deferred maintenance, keeping away from all of that. So yeah, it's several decades.
Okay. Do you know what the budget is, the predicted budget for the entire complex if zoned as requested?
I don't have that in front of me. It's tens of millions of dollars, but I don't have right in front of me what the final numbers have come in at this point.
Okay. And this is funded by the requesting entity, right? They're not taking out debt to do this. Would they be taking on debt for this? Would this be?
Yeah, every project, even St. David's takes on debt and financing from huge institutions and from to finance construction.
Yes, but not further investors. This is a.
Oh, no. Yeah, no. I understand what you're saying. No, St. David's is not. St. David's has already made the mistake of becoming landlocked on a couple of these projects, right? This project in downtown are landlocked, which is requiring us to go vertical. So no, we're not selling any land, period.
Okay. I would be interested in hearing more about the budgeting for the project, simply because I noticed in your presentation, you made the point that this is to improve meet the growing healthcare needs of Austin and the costs of that. And it occurs to me whenever I hear that phrase, what we're really talking about these days is meeting the growing needs of the healthcare needs of insured Austinites. And there's a lot of people in our neighborhood who probably are not going to be able to get services other than emergency room services who, they can be treated, but they're also going to be billed. So I just want to acknowledge that there is a huge financial component to this, and that's part of what I want to think about, and as we're weighing the recommendation.
Yeah,
thank
you. There's no doubt, but it isn't just emergency room. That's inaccurate. If somebody comes into the hospital, they're treated for whatever it takes. Which if the emergency room leads to a diagnosis of a heart issue and it requires a cath lab visit, St. David's has an obligation to treat the heart issue and the catheterization. That's in the cath lab. That's why it's $100 million of uncompensated care. This is not an institution that shies away from that obligation.
So everything that would be in these buildings would be covered by that obligation. Is that correct?
No, not everything in these buildings. Some of these buildings are typically support. Medical office buildings have the doctor's offices who also have patients that they're seeing in the hospital.
Yeah.
But
And
if there's follow-up with those patients, and we can get more detail, would follow up by going to see the doctor in the medical office building.
Right. And also, Susan, as Michael mentioned earlier, some of those doctors even have their own ORs over there.
Well, no, the ORs over there are going to be St. David's. Those are St. David's is going to own and operate those.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I didn't realize that. I thought they were going to be the doctor's ORs.
No. So thank you, Ray. That would be an example where if there was no OR facility available at the hospital, and a patient needed a surgery that had walked in without insurance, and obviously that would be the location where they would have to take that patient.
All righty, folks. Well, we all knew probably, or at least I knew, that there was going to be more than one meeting on these topics, and we're already over on this meeting on time. So unless somebody has a really pressing question. Okay, Anna, you say you have a really pressing question.
I just want to be clear on the answer that I got regarding 4335. So you looked at how much the property was worth, you looked at to see that it was not on the market, but is that it? Are you done with considering the pocket park for the hospital staff?
Well, no, I mean, I think it's, I did the follow-up you had requested because we were curious about its availability and the cost. At this moment in time, because it's not available, I'm not sure there's a path forward to creating a pocket park.
Well, I mean, I know that it's not listed, but my house is not listed either, but it doesn't mean that I don't get postcards every day trying to buy my house. So I don't know that if you have asked the owner if it's for sale, or if the effort that you've made is that's the end of it. I just want to know if I just need to let go of that dream, or if anything more is going to come of it.
I have not reached out to that owner, Wade. I don't know whether you have. You may have, because I know you've been looking at that as well.
Yeah, we've been taking a look at on who owns that property, and we can certainly, there's mailing addresses. We can certainly take a more direct shot at trying to get their attention with the property.
Okay. I'm gonna thank you all for coming, and thank you for our guests and for coming. And we will meet some more about this, I'm sure, on both of these topics. And it is now 7:48 p.m. and I'm adjourning this meeting for the contact team.
Thanks again, Ray.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Thank y'all.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ray.
Bye.
Thanks, y'all.